And we are at the start line of the women's lightweight double. This is a grand final. First race of the day with Stanford, Wisconsin, Boston, Princeton, Radcliffe, and MIT. And the lightweight doubles now up at the line, locked into their stake boats. Adjusting their points.
That's a cool shot there. I really like that. That's nice.
Not quite at attention yet, still gaining their points. Little bit of a breeze up at the start, but definitely nice conditions this morning. Stanford posted the fastest time yesterday over in lane 1, followed by Wisco, then Boston.
I'm going to wait until you guys are in motion, though, because as you sit there, it's good, then it's bad, then it's good, then bad. So once you're in motion, we'll cue you.
So we'll see good racing for sure from all of these crews.
Okay, no, I figured. That's why I'm going to wait until you're going, so I have a decent.
And it looks like they're now locked in. And these crews are off. This is the women's lightweight double grand final. Stanford, Wisconsin, Boston, Princeton, Radcliffe, and MIT with a nice start from Radcliffe over in lane 5. Along with Boston University in lane 3. All of these crews, though, clean start. I'd say as lanes 1 through 5 start to press away from MIT just a little bit. Wisconsin out quick as well. I'd say Wisconsin is our early leader here in the first 300.
Okay, sending it out to you in 3, 2, 1, switch.
300 meters into the women's lightweight doubles final. We had a sprightly start here from Stanford and Wisconsin. It's Wisconsin and Stanford about 3/4 of a length ahead of BU. BU then has a length on Princeton and Radcliffe, with MIT a little open water behind. So Stanford and Wisconsin have traded the lead already a couple of times. Nobody's gotten too much of an edge. But once again, Stanford is pushed about a deck length in front of the Badgers. And we're getting a little bit of pressure now from Boston University, who are now overlapping Wisconsin. So it's about a length and a quarter from first place Stanford to third place BU.
Leaders at 35.
Stanford crosses 500 meters at 35 strokes a minute with a 3/4 length lead.
BU 34.
Wisconsin, a length now on Boston University. They're both at 34. Then it's a little bit of open water back to Princeton and Radcliffe, who are pretty much level. Stanford now moves out to a full length lead. So it's one length, Stanford to Wisconsin, 1 length, Wisconsin back to Boston University, and a little bit of open water from Boston University back to both Princeton and Radcliffe.
Stanford taking a pump at 36.
Yeah, Stanford has popped the rate just a bit to 36, and it has moved them clear of the field. They've now got nearly 2 lengths on Wisconsin, and Boston University a further length back. Both of those crews still at 34. But Stanford notched the rate up a little bit, and they are just walking away with it at the moment. That has grown to nearly 3 lengths now. Still in silver medal position is Wisconsin with a length over BU. BU now with about a half a length of open water, and Princeton and Radcliffe just can't seem to separate each other. They've been pretty much bow to bow most of the way, as we're now 900 meters into the race. And at this point now, Princeton begins to ease away from Radcliffe a little bit. So it is Stanford really rowing nicely here. You don't see a bit of splash at either catch or release. And they approach the 1,000-meter mark with, I would say, a solid 3-length lead. Wisconsin still holds just about a length on Boston University. It's then a length and a half back to Princeton. Princeton now has nearly a length on Radcliffe, with MIT trailing. Unofficially, we've got Stanford at 3:45 at the 1,000-meter mark. And they look like they are just going to take this home. So the boats are starting to spread out a little bit now. There might be a little open water from Wisconsin back to BU, as both of them have noticeably taken their rates up here in the third 500. So that race for silver and bronze looks to be about all that isn't settled on this lake at this point. So it is Stanford with a substantial lead now. 750 meters to go. It is Boston University still trying to hold on to Wisconsin's tail. That's just about a length. That's been just about a length for the last 1,000 meters. A little bit, about a length of open water then back to Princeton, who has about a half length of open water on Radcliffe. So, about 600 meters to go. The Stanford crew still looking relaxed. There is a little push coming from Boston University now. They have, for the first time in a while, overlapped the Wisconsin stern. So those 3 crews are likely medalists. The question is, can this Boston University push get through the Wisconsin crew, as we turn you over to the finish line tent.
And moving into the last 500, an exciting grand final from the women's lightweight double. Stanford definitely looking very strong in the body of the race, particularly in the second 500 as they started to open up their lead. But will it be Wisco? Will it be Boston for the silver? Last year, Boston University took this event for that first place finish. We'll see if they can walk through Wisconsin or if Wisconsin will hold them off. Right now, though, moving through with about 400 to go, it is Stanford all day with a comfortable open water lead over the rest of the field. And it looks like Wisconsin in lane 2, holding that silver position with Boston University open water back to them in third as all of these crews approach the 250 to go. So it is Stanford, Wisconsin, and Boston looking to be our gold, silver, and bronze medalists here in the grand final of the women's lightweight double. But there's still time as these crews come in through the last 250. And Stanford in lane 1, ready to plow through the last 200 meters here to their gold position, looking long and strong. We start to see a lift in the rate here from the Stanford double with an open water lead Over lane 2, Wisconsin. Stanford now in their last 10 to 15 strokes. It is Stanford now cruising through the last 10 strokes toward that gold medal. In the grand final, lightweight double. In lane 2, Wisconsin looking to solidify their silver position, but Boston University definitely with a lift in the rate to go after them in the last 10. It is Stanford, though, our gold medalist of the women's double. In lane 2, Wisconsin now cruising through for the silver, followed by Boston University and their last few strokes here for the bronze. Over to Princeton in 4th in lane 4. Followed by Radcliffe now in their final 5. In lane 5, it is Stanford, our gold medal finisher for the women's double, with MIT now in their final 20 strokes. And MIT coming through the line in their final 2 to 3 strokes. A great race from the women's lightweight double. That was the grand final. Stanford, Wisco, Boston University for first, second, third. And up at the start, we have the men's varsity lightweight straight 4. So this is a coxless event. This includes Georgetown, Columbia, Yale, and MIT. These crews now sitting up at the start of the 4. Columbia yesterday posted the fastest time. A second behind them, Georgetown. And we are off for the men's lightweight straight 4 petite final, Georgetown, Columbia, Yale, and MIT. And it's a clean start from all 4 of these crews. With a slight advantage, I'd say, to Yale. Georgetown out pretty quick as well, but it looks like it is Yale by about a half a bow deck over Georgetown as they start to press a little bit away from Columbia and MIT. It is Yale now by about a half a length. A little bit of steering trouble in the Yale boat, though. It looks like they're moving a little bit slightly to port, although coming back into their lane now. And it is still Yale with the advantage over the rest of the field. Some good work from Columbia as they locked into their base cadence too. I'd say it's now Yale, Columbia, and Georgetown in a close third. It is Yale by about a bow deck. These 3 crews now sitting on these margins. And it's Yale and Columbia now first and second, with Georgetown in a close third as these crews approach the 500 down. Keeping an eye on Yale and Columbia in the first 500, these guys staying close. Over to the launch.
And we pick up the petite finale for the men's lightweight 4s with Columbia in the lead by 3 to 4 seats over Georgetown, and Georgetown a couple seats over Yale, with MIT open water back. In the second 500 now, Columbia is striding out to have a full 4-seat lead at 36 strokes a minute over Georgetown's 38. Yale chipping away, trying to get back in contention here and get overlap with Columbia and Georgetown if possible. But Columbia setting down a nice rhythm and swinging open together. Of course, these boats have steering issues as well to contend with. I don't mean issues in a pejorative. The coxswains are usually the bowmen, but in some cases on a buoy course, the tow is in the stern, and the stroke, who has a clear shot down the course, manages the tow. So the steering apparatus is connected to the foot of either the bow or the stroke. Columbia taking a press now, has a touch, maybe a few inches of open water over Georgetown. Yale's toiling away, but hasn't really come back on Georgetown a great deal as we approach the 1,000-meter mark. Columbia has lowered their rating now to 35, and that seems to be having a good effect. The others are 2 beats higher at 37. Now Yale is taking a press as they pass through the 1,000, and their bow is up to the bowman of Georgetown. So they hope to pull into that second spot here if they continue their momentum shift. Steady as she goes for Columbia at 34 now, a comfortable rhythm, and a quarter length, not quite a quarter length open over Georgetown. Yale continuing to knock on the door here, has got their bow within a few feet of Georgetown's bow. MIT still a couple lengths open water behind those second and third place crews. Columbia looks like they may have popped it here just for a 10 in the third 500. 36. My eye does not deceive me. They've come up with the rhythm. And Yale is now for the first time taken over second position. Yale with about a half a deck over Georgetown. Home stretch as we come up to the last 500 meters. Columbia very much in control, but Yale making a nice move here. I think it would be a tall order to catch Columbia, but they've definitely got the best of Georgetown now. And we'll get ready to turn it over to the tent with Columbia in control. Over to the tent.
And moving into the last 500, the men's lightweight straight four. This is the Petite final. Columbia clearly in control of this race, keeping an eye on Georgetown and Yale. Some really nice work from Yale, particularly in the body and in the third 500. It is Columbia, though, out long and strong as these crews approach about 300 meters to go. It is Columbia, but Yale is chasing them. Yale has decided to sprint a little bit early to see what they can do in the last 300, 250 meters. We will see if they can catch Columbia. Not much time as they come into the red and into the last stretch. It's Columbia, Yale, Georgetown moving through this Petite final as these crews move into their last 30 strokes or so. But it's Columbia in lane 2, the Lions in this straight four event, pressing now into the last 20 strokes. But Yale is on the move, keeping an eye on Yale in lane 3 and Georgetown in lane 1. Definitely seeing good speed come out of these crews as they move into the last stretch. But it's still Columbia now by just about a length over Yale, sitting in lane 3, which means it's Columbia, Yale, then Georgetown. It's Columbia by open water. It's Yale for the silver, and in lane 1, Georgetown coming through, or rather, sorry, Petite final, correction. First, second, and third in this Petite final, with MIT now coming through, and the grand final up next. So it's Columbia to take 7th in the event overall, followed by Yale in 8th, Georgetown 9th, and MIT 10th. So up next, the grand final of the men's lightweight straight 4. An exciting petite final for sure.
Okay, can you have
Okay.
Brian shut off his transmitter, please? Can you have Brian shut off his transmitter, guys?
And up at the start now for the grand final of the men's varsity lightweight straight 4. They corrected the tweet yet or no? No. I don't know, whatever. I'm just going to call this. And these crews now locked into their stake boat, with Harvard in lane 2 posting the fastest time of the bunch yesterday, followed by Princeton and then Cornell.
Doable, but it's not great.
Yeah. And the crew's now sitting at attention. And these crews are off. This is the grand final of the men's varsity lightweight straight 4. Princeton lane 1, followed by Harvard, Cornell, Penn, Dartmouth, and Navy. Looking like a clean start across the board from all of these crews, and pretty tightly packed as they move through their first 100 to 150 meters. I'd say a pretty quick start from Cornell over in lane 3, along with Dartmouth in lane 5. Crews now moving through their starting sequence and settling into the body of the race. And starting to separate now just a little bit. It is Cornell and Harvard. They look to be our early leaders here. And it's Harvard and Cornell, along with Princeton, who look to be leading this race about 300, 350 meters in. I'd say it's Harvard with the advantage over Princeton in second and Cornell in third. But it does look to be very tight between these 3 crews as they approach the 500 down. Cornell starting to move back just a little bit, which means Princeton and Harvard are pushing the rest of the field back.
Am I on?
I'd go for it.
600 meters into the grand final of the lightweight 4, and it's Princeton with a deck length lead over Harvard. Princeton sorry about this. We're not sure that we've got the technical issues worked out, but we've got Princeton with a deck length lead over Harvard, 750 meters in. Princeton settled very early and very obviously down to a lower stroke rate than anyone else in the field, and it really worked out for them as they took the early lead. Harvard has rode the first 500 almost the entire way at 40. They're now at 37.5, and they're beginning to cut into that Princeton lead, and they are within a couple of feet of drawing level. There's a good fight between Navy in third place and Cornell in fourth, and they are about a length ahead of Pennsylvania and Dartmouth. So Harvard at the 1,000 is just drawing even. The two boats cross the 1,000-meter mark together. Still Princeton understroking by a hair. It looks like Navy has taken over third place from Cornell. They've now got about a third of a length on the Big Red. And Dartmouth and Penn about a length behind Cornell in fifth and sixth. Well, Harvard may have drawn level, but they're having trouble getting by. It's Harvard by maybe a foot over Princeton as the Tigers really dig in there. So at the 1,000 they were level, and with 700 meters to go, they are essentially level, with Harvard maybe the slightest of advantages. It's a couple of lengths back to third place Navy. So at this point, Navy with about 3/4 of a length over Cornell. Cornell losing a little ground, and it's still Penn and Dartmouth just about level in fifth, sixth. Princeton has taken their stroke rate up at 600, but so has Harvard. And Harvard now begins to gradually take control of the race. So as we approach 500 meters, Harvard now with a third of a length over Princeton. Princeton still understroking Harvard, but they have gone up a bit. Then there's a good healthy margin back to Navy. Cornell seems to have refound a little bit of spirit. They have put themselves back into the race for the bronze medal. They've gone up. They are about 3 beats higher than Navy right now. And they are within a half a length of the... Nope, they are drawing level and going by Navy. That was really quick move by Cornell. So a great fight for the gold, and 3 lengths back, a great fight for the bronze.
And now moving into the last 500 meters, it's the men's lightweight straight four grand final. Keeping an eye on Harvard, Cornell, Princeton, though we saw really nice work out of Navy. Definitely looking to pick up the pace in the last 300 meters or so. A little bit of a wind, which can make it tricky for these crews to steer. Again, these are coxless boats, so the bow seat is steering, but it's looking like everything is in control as these crews now surge through the last 200 meters for the men's lightweight four grand final. And it is Harvard now moving through their last 20 strokes. Harvard in lane 2, looking to be our gold medalist champion for the men's lightweight straight four. Harvard with an open water lead now over lane 1. Princeton University, some good work from the Tigers in these last 500 meters, but it's Harvard lane 2 for the gold, Princeton for the silver. Look out for Cornell. They are on the move, looking to solidify that bronze. Can they do it over Navy? What a tight race for third. I'd say it's Cornell over Navy. We'll have results in just a moment, as now Pennsylvania comes through and Dartmouth in lane 5.
Okay, so while we got a little minute here, we'll go ahead and get some unofficial results for you from those first two races. It was Stanford as your winner in the grand final of the women's lightweight double in 7:34.7, ahead of Wisconsin 7:45.2, and Boston University with the bronze in 7:50.5. Princeton was fourth in 7:55.7. Radcliffe in fifth at 8:02.6, and MIT finishing up the field in 8:35.4. And the Petite final for the men's lightweight straight four was Columbia, your winner of that Petite final, in 6:19.5, with Yale just behind them in 6:22.7, Georgetown 6:26.1, and MIT in 6:36.39. We'll have the unofficial results for the grand final of the lightweight straight four shortly, and we'll head back up to the start for our first heavyweight race of the day. We will have the fourth final of the men's varsity four, just a two-boat race. Gonzaga University in lane 1 and Drexel University in lane 2. So we'll be up to the start for that race shortly. But we have the unofficial results now for the straight four, the lightweight straight four grand final. Harvard coming away with the win in 6:06.7, Princeton 6:10.1, and an incredibly tight race for that bronze medal position, with Cornell taking the bronze ahead of the Naval Academy. Cornell in 6:17.7, and the Naval Academy in 6:18.1. Pennsylvania 6:21.9, and Dartmouth 6:25.6. So the drone is up in the air again. We are heading out to the start, taking a bird's eye view of these two crews for the fourth level final of the men's varsity 4 event. So we'll be underway shortly with this two-boat race for the fourth level final of the men's varsity 4 shortly. You can see lane 1, Gonzaga, and in lane 2, Drexel. Both these crews were the fourth place finishers in the CD semifinals yesterday. So pretty comparable times, 6:44 for Gonzaga yesterday and 6:46 for Drexel. And so we are waiting to see who comes out on top here in the fourth level final. But right now it looks like Drexel got the early lead on Gonzaga in this two-boat duel for the fourth level final of the varsity 4s. So coming up after this, we'll have the next race of the varsity 4s, the third level final, with the women's lightweight 4s grand final coming up at 8:50. But it's a very tight race right now in the first 500 meters. Gonzaga jumped back into that Drexel lead that Drexel established in the first 10-15 high strokes. And right now they're kind of going stroke for stroke. It looks like both crews have shifted down into the upper 30s for their base rate. Both crews moving the boat well, swinging together. You can see just when you got two boats side by side, it's a little less for the coxswains to deal with, so you can focus just on what's going on with that other crew. And the Drexel coxswain now making the move to try to get himself out to the bow ball of the Gonzaga crew. So both these two crews, coached by Wisconsin alumni, Dan Gain for Gonzaga, Paul Safel for Drexel University out of Philadelphia. And it looks like the young men from the crew from Philadelphia have taken the lead about a half a length now as we head out to the launch.
Meters in to this fourth level final of the Cox 4s, and we've got match racing here this morning. This is Henley-esque on Natoma. We've got the Dragons in lane 2 and the Zags from Gonzaga over in lane 1, and right now the Dragons are a couple seats up on their competitors from Washington, from Spokane. And let me get some ratings from my compatriot here, Bob Jogstetter. It looks like about a 34.5 to 35 for the Dragons in their yellow tops. 35. And they have 5 seats now. And 34 for Gonzaga. So instead of champagne and strawberries at the finish line, we have brats and steaks. I know Columbia brought a lot of steaks. So maybe these athletes can line up for some chow after this race, as the Drexel Dragons now have stroke on bow of Gonzaga. 36 for Drexel now, a little bit higher. And 35 from Gonzaga. So Gonzaga taking a press now, and they've come back. They've come back on the Dragons, and their bow is on the 3 seat of Drexel as they pass through the 1,000-meter mark. Coxswains giving great encouragement to their oarsmen. And I think the Dragons have responded and earned that seat back. It's very close, but good that this is a tight race here. And match racing will also often produce that they just want to hang tight and you're racing just one other opponent. Looks like the Dragons maybe have got a seat more now in the middle of this third 500, not quite the middle, yeah, close to 750 to go, I would say. Both crews throwing a comfortable 35 now and just trying to make that hull sing through the water with leg drive and backswing. Stroke on the bow of Gonzaga for Drexel. As they begin to wind it up with 600 meters to go, it's a little bit more of a comfortable lead for Drexel. So just crossing the 500-meter mark now. Both crews have come up 1 beat to 36. And let's see if Gonzaga can wind it up a little bit, make a hull speed shift, and cut back into that lead that Drexel has earned over the middle 1,000 meters. They have the appearance of moving up now, so we'll turn it over to the tower.
Okay, the view from the drone is back live. So here we are in lane number 1, that farthest lane in the picture that you're seeing right now. Colgate in lane number 1, Holy Cross in 2, Columbia out in 3, Oregon State University in 4, Pennsylvania in 5, and Fairfield in lane 6 at the bottom of your picture. Right now it looks like Holy Cross getting the good start, leading the race right now with Colgate trailing them, and in contention Columbia and Fairfield, with Pennsylvania and Oregon State in the 4th and 5th positions right now. So Holy Cross establishing that lead off the start, about a deck, maybe just a little more than a deck length ahead of the crew from Colgate. So Holy Cross off quickly, moving the boat well out there in lane 2, with it looks to be Colgate in lane 1 in that 2nd spot. And a very tight race here for the 3rd position as well as the 5th position. So crews that have separated are lane 1 and 2, Holy Cross and Colgate, with Fairfield and Columbia out in the 3rd position. Let's head out to the launch for the call.
We've seen a good start out of this Holy Cross crew for probably the 3rd time in this regatta, as they lead at 600 meters by 1/2 of a length over Colgate. It's then about a length back to 3rd place Fairfield. Fairfield just barely ahead of Columbia. Oregon State and Pennsylvania then about a 1/3 of a length behind Columbia. So at 750 meters, Holy Cross about 2/3 of a length now on Colgate. Those two crews distancing themselves a bit. It's a little bit of open water back to Fairfield, with Columbia closing on them and Oregon State closing on both of them. So Holy Cross at 34.5 maintains 2/3 of a length lead over Colgate, who's rowing 36. Fairfield still barely holding on to 3rd place. And now Oregon State is level with Columbia for 4th. Fairfield rowing under the rest of the field. They're rowing 32.5, and they're still hanging with everybody. They're in 3rd, but now it's Columbia and Oregon State closing up on them. Pennsylvania still hanging around. They're about 2/3 of a length behind Columbia and Oregon State. It's Holy Cross now, easing away. That's nearly a length for Holy Cross ahead of Colgate. Colgate with about a 1/3 of a length of open water over Oregon State and Fairfield, who are just about level, and Columbia only a seat back. Pennsylvania is still closing in a bit. That's down to about a 1/2 a length from these 3 crews just ahead of them. Yeah, Oregon State moving by. It looks like they have taken 3rd place away from Fairfield, and Columbia coming with them. But those 3 crews all within a seat or 2, and Pennsylvania now 2/3 of a length back. But it's open water for the cross. The cross with about 5 feet of open water now over Colgate. Colgate with 1/2 a length of open water over Oregon State. Oregon State with 5 feet over both Columbia and Fairfield, with Pennsylvania 1/2 a length behind that. So, Holy Cross rowing long, rowing low still. Approaching 500 meters, they're still at 34, and they may not need to do much more because they now have nearly 1/2 a length of open water over Colgate. So Colgate, 1/2 a length of open water over Oregon State, now establishing themselves as a solid 3rd by 1/2 a length over Columbia, another couple of seats back to Fairfield, and 1/2 a length further back to Pennsylvania, as we turn you over to the finish line tent.
All right. right, so Holy Cross making a statement here. Holy Cross with the open water lead ahead of Colgate. Colgate in a solid second place position. Oregon State Beavers moving into that third spot right now, but a tight pack with the fourth, fifth, and sixth crew right behind Oregon State University. So right now we got 500 meters to go. Holy Cross in control. Holy Cross on the lead here with Colgate in that second position. Oregon State in third. So the young men from Oregon State, all true freshmen, moving well, taking this Varsity 4 race, their first experience at an IRA national championship. Holy Cross's athletes a little bit more experienced, some of the top guys from the Holy Cross program alongside Colgate, which is nearly the same thing. And Colgate moving, trying to get back into the Holy Cross lead, cutting down on that margin right now. And we have Fairfield, Pennsylvania, and Columbia trying to push and challenge Oregon State for that third spot. It looks like Columbia moving well. Columbia coming in to the Oregon State lead. Fairfield and Pennsylvania just behind Oregon State as well. It looks like Holy Cross coming away with a clear win in this third level final for the men's Varsity 4. And Colgate in a solid second place position here. Holy Cross over the line for the win. Colgate coming in second. And it looks like a good race here with four boats tightly packed. Oregon State finishing in third, followed by Columbia, Fairfield, and Pennsylvania. So a good solid race all the way, wire to wire lead for the crew from Holy Cross. A good effort there in the third level final for the young men from Holy Cross University coming away with the win in the third level final of the Varsity 4. Next race coming up, we have another grand final determining a champion here in the women's Varsity Lightweight 4. In lane 1, Stanford, 2, Wisconsin, 3, Boston University, 4, MIT, lane 5, Princeton, lane 6, Radcliffe, and in lane 7, Tulsa. So we have a 7-boat race. Always exciting to see all the lanes packed. We'll be back shortly with the unofficial results of the third level final of the Varsity 4, and then head up to the start for the grand final of the women's lightweight 4. Okay, we have the unofficial results for that last race, the third level final of the Varsity 4. Holy Cross was your winner, 6:33.3 seconds. Colgate coming in second, 6:39.1. Oregon State holding on to third place in 6:42.3. Columbia, 6:43.6. Fairfield, 6:44.4. And Pennsylvania just behind them and 6:44.9. So a good quality race by the crew from Holy Cross. So we'll head back out to the start and have the drone view of the grand final of the women's Varsity Lightweight 4. These crews raced yesterday in essentially a race for lanes to determine who had the highest seeded lane. And the results from yesterday, Stanford ended up as the number 1 seed, with Stanford getting to take lane 1, Wisconsin in 2, Boston University 3, MIT in 4, Princeton in 5, Radcliffe in 6, and Tulsa in lane 7, closest to us. Again, the technology available to the production here, getting this drone above the race course, providing wonderful shots of the starting platform here at Lake Natoma at the Sacramento State Aquatic Center. So it is a great setup that we have here, allowing the crews, allowing the parents that are not able to be here at the race, allowing friends and family to watch and see how your athletes are competing. So we have 7 crews across here, everybody aligned. It looks like the crews are all up at the catch now. We should be underway shortly for the grand final of the women's lightweight 4. All right, we are underway here for the grand final of the women's lightweight Varsity 4. This is kind of the second varsity level of the crews for the women's lightweight varsities. So top athletes, first through 8, those crews are in the lightweight 8s. The next athlete essentially 9 through 12 are in these varsity 4s. So it looks like we got a great start here from Stanford. Nice and quick out of the start here for Stanford, followed by Boston University and Wisconsin in a solid 3rd position right now. With, it appears to be Princeton also right in the mix for that 3rd spot. So we're looking for which crew is going to be the winner of this grand final for the lightweight women's varsity 4. And it looks to be that we got lane 1 out early, just ahead of lane 3, Boston University. So Stanford with a good quick start, nice power off the line here. They've settled down into their base pace now, establishing rhythm off of their high strokes to start the race. So a good strong start from the crew from Palo Alto. So Stanford with the lead right now, and it looks like the Wisconsin Badgers have solidified into a 2nd place position just ahead of Boston University. And we have 3 boats pretty tightly packed behind those 3 leaders as well. MIT, Princeton, and Radcliffe, with Tulsa trailing right now. So we have right now Stanford out in the lead. It looks like Stanford's made a move, pressing away from Wisconsin and Boston University. Wisconsin was a little behind Boston early on in the race. They've taken a good advantage over the Terriers now. It looks like the Badgers are pushing against that crew from Stanford. So your 2 leaders, Stanford and Wisconsin, right with them. Boston University in a solid 3rd place position, and 3 very tightly packed crews with MIT, Princeton, and Radcliffe.
For Boston University, then up open water back to Radcliffe, Princeton, MIT, and Tulsa. 38 strokes a minute for Stanford. They like to row high, and they've got almost 4 seats now over Wisco. Boston University in 3rd, open water behind Wisco. Wisco with open water, Boston University has open water lead over MIT, and then it would be over to Radcliffe probably in 5th. 6th would be Princeton, and then Tulsa making a good effort here to hang on to this pack in 6th. So back to the front, it's Stanford and Wisco locked in a very aggressive duel. Not much more has separated those 2. Wisco is refusing to let them get away. 37.5 for Stanford, and Wisco's knocking at the door again, trying to get back into them. And Boston University, meanwhile, stays comfortably in 3rd. Wow, great race, high stroking. These women lightweight 4 widths. And it looks like Stanford's got a little bit more now. Stanford turned on the gas, and let me get a rating. They're probably at 38, 37.5, and they are just pressing harder. Wow. And they've got almost, well, let's call it 6 seats, not a length yet. And then it drops back a length and a half, to a length and 3/4 to 3rd place at Boston University. And the rest of the pack really starting to separate and fall back off those front runners. About 750 meters to go. It's all Stanford. High stroking, racing, aggressive, good blade work, and Wisconsin threw everything they had at them and could not match their power. So 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, Stanford, Wisco, BU. I would say it's going to probably, even with 700 meters to go, because of the margins after BU, this is probably how it will end up. Stanford going up again, another beat. Wow, with 600 meters to go, They are aggressive. 35 for Wisco. A splash, call it an eighth of a length open for Stanford. Let's see if Wisco can wind it up and close that margin. We'll go a little farther with you into the fourth 500. Give you our camera shots. The margins really haven't changed. And we'll give you the order. Fourth then, MIT. And over to
Okay, so Stanford in that lane closest to the shore really has taken their lead and taken the advantage all the way down the race course here. So Stanford's women's lightweight 4 really striking well, moving together. You can see the Wisconsin crew in a solid second position with Boston University in third. You can tell with the conditions, just a little bit of breeze today, the crews are trying to struggle with just the blade work a tiny little bit, but everybody's looking very well out here this morning with Stanford on the lead, Wisconsin in second, Boston University in third. Looks like probably running out of room for anyone to really challenge Stanford, but we should have some good races here for the fourth, fifth, and sixth position here. So right now, we do have a lead from Stanford. They're going for their second gold medal finish on the day. Stanford coming with a lot of power, lifting the rate up. It's their final race of the season. No need to save anything. So Stanford on the lead, pushing, getting that rate up higher now. Wisconsin, same thing. Boston University as well. So those are your three that are looking in solid medal position here. We have Stanford in lane 1 along the shore, cruising to a gold medal finish in the lightweight women's 4. Wisconsin in second, just a little touch of open water ahead of Boston University, who has closed a little bit on the Badgers. But it is Stanford looking for the line right now. Stanford crossing the line, open water ahead of Wisconsin. Wisconsin just a touch of open water ahead of Boston University. Boston University well clear of the rest of the field here. So those are your three medalists, Stanford, Wisconsin, and Boston University. Finishing up here, crossing the line now, we have MIT in the fourth place position. Radcliffe just a half a length ahead of Princeton. And a little open water back to Tulsa University, finishing in seventh position overall in the grand final of the women's lightweight varsity 4. So great race from Stanford, taking advantage of a good clean start, good power through the middle of the race and moving away at the finish as well. So a complete race from the crew from Stanford. We'll get the unofficial results to you quickly and head back out for the start. We move into a series of races for the men's varsity lightweight 4s coming up next.
And results are in for the women's varsity lightweight 4. An exciting race we saw just conclude. It was Stanford 720.9, Wisco in second at 722.6, Boston 732.7 for third, MIT in fourth 741, Radcliffe fifth 745.4, Princeton in sixth at 747.1, and Tulsa in seventh 754.7. Thanks. And up at the start now for the men's varsity lightweight 4 Petite final. This is the 9 a.m. race with Colgate, Yale, MIT, Cornell, and Georgetown. Georgetown took the event last year. And in 2016, Cornell finished second in the Petite final. And these crews are off. A clean start across the board for the men's varsity lightweight 4 Petite final. Pretty quick start from Georgetown, Cornell, Yale, Colgate, I'd say these are some of our early leaders here in the first 30 strokes. But Yale starting to edge their bow out. I'd say it's an advantage to Yale, about a bow deck or so ahead of MIT and Cornell. Georgetown moving pretty quickly out of the gate here too, but it looks like it is Yale to take the early lead in the first 300 meters, which means it's Yale in first, I'd say Georgetown in second, and a very close third to MIT, with Cornell and Colgate pretty close behind them. Yale starting to assert their dominance now, just about 400 meters in. They're up 1 length over the rest of the field, so up open water just about over MIT, next to them in lane 3. MIT definitely getting work done in the first 400 meters as well, but it is Yale, our early leader here, with some really tight racing for second and third. Keeping an eye on MIT, Georgetown, and Colgate for third. Not to be left out, Cornell, though. This will be an exciting race, but Yale is looking to take the early lead over to the launch for the middle 1,000.
Themselves very early, a length and a quarter ahead of the rest of the field, which is all within a seat or two. Second place is Colgate. They've got a couple of seats on MIT, Cornell, and Georgetown, who are all essentially level. So it's a length and a quarter for Yale ahead of Colgate. Colgate beginning to move out. They've got now half a length over MIT, Cornell, and Georgetown as these crews settle into the second 500. Yale pushing it along, looking fairly relaxed. Quarter length of open water for Yale, and now 3/4 of a length for Colgate over MIT and Cornell, as Georgetown drops back a half a length behind those two. Colgate at 36, rowing a beat or so below Yale. Yale still has that same margin, about a quarter length of open water, but Colgate now has 1 full length on MIT and Cornell. Then it's 3/4 of a length back from there to Georgetown. So approaching the 1,000, Yale got this lead early. You could see them bursting out in that first 250, and they have held it for the last 700 meters or so, and now they're increasing it slightly. It's about a length and a half lead for Yale. Colgate with 1 length over Cornell and MIT, who are locked together and have been for just about this entire race. And then it's about a length back to Georgetown. Well, Yale took a little burst there, and now they've sort of settled into it again. Colgate still firing away. They're a half a length of open water from Yale, and just a little bit of open water ahead of both MIT and Cornell. So every time I try to tell you Cornell's taken third, MIT makes a liar out of me by coming back. But it looks like right now Cornell may be trying to edge out. They've got about a seat now on MIT. Just about a length plus behind Colgate. Oh, thanks MIT, making a liar out of me again. They've come back level with Cornell. Then it's a little open water back to Georgetown. Colgate making some inroads now into that lead from Yale. We're approaching 500 meters, and that lead is down to about 5 feet of open water for Yale. Colgate rowing lower, rowing a little bit longer, it looks like, especially at the front end. And as they cross 500, it's a little over a length for Yale over Colgate. Colgate with a quarter length of open water over MIT and Cornell, who are level. Then it's a little open water further back to Georgetown as we turn you over to the finish line tent.
And moving into the last 500 for the men's varsity lightweight for petite final. Yale, our early leader, looks to have an open water lead over second place Colgate with some really tight racing between MIT and Cornell for third in this petite final. But Yale looking long and strong, again with an open water lead, clearly in control of this petite final. These crews now moving into the last 250. It is Yale, followed by Colgate, with tight racing between MIT and Cornell for third, but look at Yale go. Yale with an open water lead, looking to solidify that first place position for this petite final. And what an exciting race for second here between these three crews, MIT, Cornell, and Colgate, with some really nice sprint work out of lane 1 from Colgate along with Cornell, but it looks like it will be Colgate for second, with Cornell taking a very close third to fourth place MIT. And on the far side, Georgetown and their final strokes, which means it's Yale, Colgate, Cornell, MIT, and Georgetown. Great racing from these crews for the men's varsity lightweight 4 in the petite final. We'll have unofficial results in just a moment. And unofficial times are in for the women's varsity lightweight 4. That was the grand final we saw go by. It was Stanford for the gold at a 7:20.9. Second, Wisconsin, 7:27.6. Third, Boston, 7:32.7. Fourth, MIT, 7:41. Fifth, Radcliffe at a 7:45.4. Sixth, Princeton, 7:47.1. Tulsa, seventh, 7:54.7. And a beautiful shot from the drone as we come up for the men's varsity lightweight 4. This is the grand final with Harvard, Navy, Dartmouth, Columbia, Princeton, and Pennsylvania. Navy posting a very fast time yesterday at a 6:33 to win their semi. We'll expect good racing across all 6 of these lanes and crews. So Columbia over in lane 4 finished second in this event last year. Princeton last year was third. Harvard was in the Petite in 2016, and they now sit right next to Navy in lane 1. A little bit of a wind this morning. Touch of a crosswind, which can be challenging in the 4s. But definitely fair conditions as these crews lock into their stake boats. So it's a race for medals in this men's varsity lightweight 4 grand final. All crews now sitting up at the catch. Gaining their points. And now crews locked in at the front, waiting for the call. And these crews are off in their first few strokes of the starting sequence. This is the men's varsity lightweight 4 grand final. Quick, clean start across the board. I'd say Columbia with a bit of an advantage over the rest of the field. A really nice start from Columbia. Pennsylvania not to be left out as well. Over to Navy. All three of these crews, I'd say quickest out of the gate. But Columbia maybe with a slight advantage over Pennsylvania. I'd say these two crews looking to assert their dominance early in the race. Navy not to be left out, so Navy, Columbia, and Penn starting to edge themselves away from the field just a little bit in these very early strokes. Pennsylvania on the move as these crews lengthen into their base cadence. Penn definitely getting work done in the first 500. Navy starting to assert their dominance a little bit more over Columbia, which means it's Navy and Columbia, I'd say, for these first two positions. Back to Columbia in third, so Navy and Pennsylvania rather, with Columbia in third. Navy and Penn contending for first at the moment as these crews look towards the first 500-meter mark. And it's Navy and Pennsylvania, our early leaders. I'd say Penn over Navy now as we move in over to the launch for the middle 1,000.
And we pick up the lightweight 4 grand final, race number 8, with the Naval Academy out front by 5 or 6 seats over Harvard in lane 1. Then it's back to Dartmouth running in third. Naval Academy at 35 out front, keeps pushing away. Very powerful strokes. Harvard 35 also. Pennsylvania out here in lane 6 having a good showing. They're running, trying to draw up with Dartmouth in third. And 5th would be Columbia, and 6th the Tigers. Navy with a splash of open, maybe a foot of open now over Harvard, as they really are attacking the second 500. Can Dartmouth come up on Harvard? Dartmouth is still overlapped over Harvard. And Pennsylvania out here in lane 6 trying to get back in contact with Harvard. Columbia has about a length on Princeton, not quite a length. So out to the front again, it's the Naval Academy. Pushing the hands out of bow. This is a really good showing for the midshipmen as they pass through 1,000 in 3:08. That sounds extremely fast. Yeah. So they're pushing along here, and they have a quarter length of open now. And Dartmouth starting to make a press against Harvard here. Two-man of the Dartmouth crew took a look, and their bow is up to the Harvard stroke. And whether Harvard is content to let Navy go, their coxswain's got a good view. They're all right next to them. The other crews seem to be coming up a little bit. Harvard at 34, just a little bit lackadaisical for the third 500. You got to be amping it up a little bit more than that. Boy, the Naval Academy is just taken off. They've got almost a length open now, not quite, half a length at least. 2/3, half to 2/3. So they're rowing inspired out front. Now let's see if Dartmouth can challenge Harvard for that silver medal. Dartmouth is at 36 now, Harvard 34, so they're pressing on it, and they're coming up. And the rest of the pack remains unchanged. Columbia clearly in 4th, so they've taken over from Pennsylvania that had a good first 750 for that 5th spot, or 4th spot. Check that. As we go into the last 500, it's all Navy, and with Dartmouth challenging.
And moving into the last 500, it's the men's varsity lightweight 4 grand final. Navy not looking back, looking to solidify their gold medal position here, followed by Harvard and Dartmouth with some nice work from the big green at about 7:50 to go to start to push back into Harvard just a little bit. Harvard in lane 1, Navy lane 2, Dartmouth lane 3. So very tight, exciting racing right next to each other in this grand final. But look at Navy go, cruising into their last 250 meters and toward that gold medal. It's Navy, Harvard, Dartmouth. Will it be Harvard or Dartmouth for the silver? We'll see as these crews get a little bit closer, but a very exciting grand final indeed. Navy looking to solidify that gold medal with an open water lead over the rest of the field. Harvard and Dartmouth now chasing that silver medal with Harvard in lane 1, closest to shore. We saw Harvard rowing a little bit lower than Dartmouth. Have they kicked it up now in the last 20? It is Navy looking towards that gold medal in their last few strokes. And look at the big green go over in lane 3. Dartmouth, though, surging towards the finish line. Is it Dartmouth? Is it Harvard? I'd say it's Harvard by just about a half a bow deck with the big green in third. An exciting grand final as the rest of the crews come through the field, followed by Columbia, Pennsylvania, and in their final strokes, Princeton, the Tigers, which means it is Navy for first, Harvard for the silver, and Dartmouth for the bronze. Beautiful work here in the men's varsity lightweight 4 grand final. And times are in from unofficial times for the men's varsity lightweight 4 petite final. It was Yale in first, 6:33.6. Colgate second, 6:38.6. Cornell third, 6:41.2. MIT fourth, 6:41.7. Georgetown fifth, 6:51.8. And a big congratulations to Navy for winning the men's varsity lightweight 4.
I still have one of the square ones that works. We know what the
Okay, so we'll be going up to the start line for the men's varsity 4 petite final starting soon. You can see great conditions out here on Lake Natoma, just a little bit of breeze compared to the last couple days of racing. The flags on the tents are just moving a little bit, nothing to affect these crews here on the final day of the 2017 season. We'll get the grand final results from the men's varsity lightweight 4 to you now. So we have the Naval Academy coming away with the gold medal. Naval Academy in 6:26.5, Harvard 6:32.3, and Dartmouth 6:32.5. So very tight race there between the silver and bronze positions. In fourth was Columbia, 6:36.6, Pennsylvania 6:40.3, and Princeton 6:46.9 for the grand final of the men's varsity lightweight 4. So next up, we're moving back to men's heavyweight 4s. Starting out here, the men's heavyweight 4s petite final with Marist in lane 1, Harvard in 2, the Naval Academy in 3, Wisconsin in 4, Dartmouth in 5, and MIT in the red hull out in lane 6. So we have every crew up at the start, and we have a start to the Petite final of the Varsity 4. So a mix of crews here. Some crews that have qualified 8s, and then other crews where this is their top 4 athletes from their program. So we can expect really good racing, a 6-boat race here coming through in this Petite final. So Marist in lane 1, Harvard in 2, Navy in 3, Wisconsin in 4, with Dartmouth in 5, and MIT in lane 6. So a tight race here from all 6 crews early in the race. It looks like, if anything, Harvard has a small lead and had taken a half a deck length advantage over Navy and Marist. So Wisconsin pushing right as well. So it looks like no crews getting more than a deck length lead, with the 3 outer lanes, lane 4, 5, and 6, staying very close together here. Looking across, it looks like almost all 6 crews are within a third of a length here. So a very good start from all 6 of the crews here. Harvard taking the lead, Navy in second, with a very tight race for the 3rd position between Wisconsin, Dartmouth, MIT, and Marist. But Harvard looks to be just stretching out a little bit in front now, with the Naval Academy moving with them. So Harvard getting about a deck length. It looks like their coxswain is probably looking almost onto the bow ball of the Naval Academy crew. So we've got a close race here with 3 crews in the lead, looking like Harvard is your leader early in the race. And let's head on out to the launch for the call.
Of the Petite final of the men's Varsity 4. It's about a half a deck from Harvard back to Navy, and then about a seat further back is Marist. Marist has a couple of seats on Wisconsin, a third of a length on Dartmouth, and then another half a length back to MIT. Navy coming up. Navy drawing level with Harvard now, 700 meters in. And both of those crews are just a deck length in front of a scrappy Marist crew over in lane 1. My fellow announcer tells me that the lead boats are at 34.5, and it looks like Marist making a push. It's Harvard by a couple of feet over Navy. Marist coming up, drawing level with Navy. So those 3 bows are only a couple of feet apart. Then it's nearly a length back to Wisconsin, half a length then to Dartmouth, and MIT closing up on Dartmouth. That's within a deck again. Harvard still barely in the lead now. As the boats surge each stroke, it's a 1 to 3 foot lead for Harvard, depending on what part of the cycle they're on. Marist still hanging right there. They're a couple of feet behind Navy. So crossing the 1,000, it's Harvard just barely ahead of Navy, just barely ahead of Marist. Marist now with a 1 length lead over Wisco, and Dartmouth and MIT hanging close behind Wisconsin. That's all within 2/3 of a length. Harvard and Navy still nearly bow to bow, with Harvard the slight advantage. Marist looked like they had a little trouble over there for a couple of strokes, and that's dropped them a half a length back, suddenly dropped a half a length back. So let's see if they can fight their way back into it. They've certainly been game so far. So a little bit of overlap now from Wisconsin to Marist, but now Marist fighting back. It's Harvard by a deck now over Navy, but Marist coming back to within 2 seats of Navy in 3rd position. They've got that length back on Wisconsin. Wisconsin with 3/4 of a length over both Dartmouth and MIT. So 600 meters to go. Harvard beginning to ease away. Harvard with a 1/3 of a length over Navy, but they are overstroking them now. They're at about 36.5 to Navy's 35. Marist 3 seats behind the Naval Academy. So heading in to the last 500. Team final. It is Harvard, half a length, a little bit less, over Navy. Navy, 3/4 of a length.
Okay, so good tight racing here going on. It looks like the crew from Marist dropped back just a little bit. Harvard and Navy up on the lead right now. Wisconsin, Dartmouth, and MIT in the outer lanes. So right now we've got the crew from Harvard, lane 2, leading the race here. So good racing going on from the Naval Academy, challenging Harvard with in that third 500 meters. Marist just dropping back a little bit here, and the outer lanes just a little bit of a bobble there from lane 4, Wisconsin. But Dartmouth and MIT in the outer lanes pushing right with the Wisconsin crew for that 4th place position. But we have a tight race here out front, and Harvard in lane 2 on the lead with the Naval Academy pressing, and Marist in a solid 3rd position right now in this Petite final of the men's varsity 4. So Harvard, your lane 2 leader right now. Naval Academy in lane 3 trying to really press into the Harvard lead right now. Harvard has bumped the rate up just a touch right now as they hit about 200 meters to go. Harvard is surging. The Naval Academy digging in, trying to find a little bit more in the final 100 meters of the race here. But it looks like Harvard is clearly in the lead right now. Harvard pressing. Harvard's lifting that rate to the line now. Navy clearly in the 2nd place position. Marist running a solid 3rd here. So Harvard is over the line. And the Naval Academy in 2nd. So Harvard is your 1st place crew. And Marist in 3rd, followed by a tight race here with, it looks to be Wisconsin, MIT, and Dartmouth. So a good race there for that 4th place position. 3 crews tightly packed on the outside, but Harvard comes away with the win in the Petite final ahead of the Naval Academy and Marist. We'll get those times to you, the unofficial times to you shortly. But good racing in that Petite final of the men's varsity 4. And next up we have our first heavyweight grand final of the day. 9:30 race. We have the men's varsity 4 grand final coming up with Washington in lane 1, followed by California in 2, Boston in lane 3, Princeton in 4, Brown in lane 5, and Marietta in lane 6. So should have a great race in this first heavyweight grand final of the day. So just going back to check a quick result here, the lightweight 4 grand final, we had Navy as your winner in 6:26.5, ahead of Harvard in 6:32.3, and the bronze medalist Dartmouth in 6:32.5. We'll get the unofficial results of the Petite final to you now, with Harvard coming away your winner in that race. Harvard 6:34.2, Navy 6:36.4, Marist 6:41.8, Wisconsin 6:46.5, MIT 6:47.5, and Dartmouth in 6:47.6. Tight race for that 5th place position there. So we're going back up to the start now. The drone view, generously donated by the alumni of Brown University. A great position to take a look at all the crews. A wonderful shot right now of the 6 crews awaiting the start of the grand final of the men's varsity 4. You can see the crews are relaxed at the start right now. They have not locked on. Coxswains are just keeping position. All crews are locked on and ready. We're just waiting for the start. Again, we have in lane 1, Washington. In lane 2, California. In lane 3, Boston University. In lane 4, Princeton. In lane 5 is Brown. And in lane 6 is Marietta. So this is the crew from Marietta. It's their top 6 guys who they came away and won the heat and then finished 3rd in their semifinal. And you can see the other heat winners in this. We had Washington in a dominant heat win, as well as open water win in their semifinal. And lane 2, California winning the other semifinal. And those 2 crews were just separated by, in their overall time, by about a second. So we're expecting a very tight race with them. Princeton and Boston University running very close in just over 6:20 in the semifinals. So Boston University was 2nd to Washington, with Brown very tightly packed behind them in that semifinal. The crews are up at the catch now, awaiting the signal for the start. And it looks like we have a start now. So all 6 crews off cleanly in the first few strokes. It looks like California and Washington with a big surge to press ahead of Boston University, Princeton, Brown, and Marietta. But it looks like a good clean start from Washington. High strokes going hard, going after it in the early going here by Washington. So the Huskies just maybe a foot lead on California right now. This view from the drone gives you a great perspective of all 6 crews. You can see how tightly packed the field is. So we have Washington on the lead, maybe getting a third of a deck length or more over their rivals from California, with Princeton the 3rd place crew. And a nice solid start from Marietta in lane 6, with Boston University running in 5th and Brown in 6th right now. So we have the Huskies out in front of California. California not letting them get any more lead. Right now it's about that half a bow deck. It looks like California has actually jumped back in as they shifted into the base rate here. So California just behind Washington. Washington keeping a close eye on California, with Princeton running in that 3rd position. Marietta and Boston very close for 4th here, with Brown trailing. So Washington taking a little push, getting out to a bigger lead on the Golden Bears from California. So it looks like Washington's 2 seat is up to the bowman, or the bow ball of the California crew. Let's head out to the launch for the middle 1,000.
550 meters in, as expected, the Washington Huskies are leading by about 6 seats over California. Still at 39, the Huskies are rowing very high to get out early. California down around 37, 36 now, and the Tigers in lane 4 have claimed 3rd spot, 36 for Princeton. Boston University in 5, and probably over to Marietta for 5th place, and Brown in 6th. But California is not going to let Washington just walk away with this one, and they're pressing hard to keep contact with the Huskies. Washington still 38. They've won all their preliminary races by lots of open water, and California is really taking them to task this morning. Cal 36, and a good look at Princeton here in 3rd position, holding off Boston University. Princeton a full length up on the Terriers. The Terriers maybe a few seats up on Marietta, and Washington now, if we go back to the front, at the 1,000-meter pole, they've decided to put the legs down, and 3:07 unofficially from the launch here. And they have got open water, just a splash of open, and they just look like they are taking off here. I've never seen a 4-width rate that high in the middle of the race. I bet they're up 38, 39, Bob. What do we got? 38. And they are hungry. I think the NBA scouts are out here on the water looking at that 3-man again. They're looking to see if he can be drafted for the Cavaliers. And they are putting the blades in and pushing away. So it's almost like they were on autopilot for the first 1,000, and now they've decided it's time to go home. 38 and a half, but they are really marching away from Cal now. Cal has no answer. Cal has a 1/4 length open water over the Tigers, and Boston University doing their best to draw back into that 3rd spot, but it's a tall order. They've got a splash of open water plus a length to make up to get even with Princeton. Well, let's see if the California boys can mount a charge. They just look a little shorter than Washington. 500 meters to go. It'll be the Huskies with open water in lane 1, as they charge toward the finish line and over to the tower.
All right, so it's the Huskies in lane 1 with an open water lead over California. California looking to mount a challenge here in the final 500 meters. And it's clear Washington and California are the top two. Princeton running in that solid third position here. Boston University pressing them, along with Brown and Marietta in the outside lanes. So Washington, your clear leader along the shore here with open water as we hit the red buoys, indicating the final 250 meters of the race. So Washington looking very strong, looking quick, not having to lift the rate too high yet, but we can expect them to turn it on and really charge for the line here. So Washington ahead of California. California trying to claw back into that Washington lead, but right now it's looking like it's going to be a clear gold medal win for the Huskies. So Husky here in lane 1 with the lead over California. Princeton in a solid bronze medal position. Boston University trying to challenge Princeton along with Marietta and Brown for those final spots, but it's the Huskies with open water ahead of California right now. So Washington in their Pocock K4 really rowing well to the line, through the line. It's the Huskies for the gold medal with California in the silver medal position, and here comes the Princeton Tigers in bronze. So those three crews are your three medalists. We have a very tight pack for fourth here. Boston just over Marietta and Brown University. So a good finish from all crews. Great racing there in the grand final of the men's Varsity 4 event. We'll get those unofficial times to you in just a minute, but a great race by Washington, a wire-to-wire win for the Huskies, just ahead of their Pac-12 rivals from California and the Princeton Tigers in bronze. So good racing and a very tight race for that fourth place position as well. So as soon as we can, we'll get you the unofficial results of the Petite final, or of the grand final. And coming up next, we'll be back out at the start for the start of racing for the men's heavyweight eights, and we'll begin the third Varsity 8 fourth level final. Just two crews, Santa Clara University and UC San Diego. Those are the two crews that are coming up next in the 940 race. We'll follow that up with the third level final of the 3V, and then into third and fourth level finals for the second varsity. And the grand finals, we have the unofficial results of that last race. The unofficial results of the men's Varsity 4 grand final. Your champions this year, Washington in 623.8, California 628.3, Princeton 634.3, Boston University 639 flat, Marietta 639.8, and rounding out the field, Brown 640.7. So great racing all around in these men's Varsity 4s. We're going to head back up to the start now and get the first race of the third Varsity 8s, which is the fourth level final for the men's third Varsity 8.
And up at the line for the men's third Varsity 8, the fourth level final. This is a two-boat race between Santa Clara and University of California, San Diego. So from the shore, these two crews will be closest to us as they come through with 500 to go. And both of them are now off for the men's third Varsity 8 fourth level final. Clean starts from both of these crews, and I'd say really tight between Santa Clara and University of California, San Diego. In fact, a bit tough to say exactly who has the advantage right now. Maybe a little bit of an advantage to Santa Clara, although I'd say for the most part, these guys are racing bow ball by bow ball. Santa Clara with maybe slight advantage of about a seat over San Diego, and it looks like it is Santa Clara now lengthening into their base cadence. Both of these crews looking long and strong here as we move through the first 300 or so meters. But it is Santa Clara in lane 1 now with the advantage over California, San Diego, up by about a half a length. And Santa Clara rather over University of California, San Diego. These crews sitting on these margins of about a half a length between the two, with Santa Clara as our leader. Santa Clara starting to make a little bit of a push now. We see them pressing through San Diego. They'll be the first to cross into the middle 1,000 over to the launch.
500 meters into the fourth level final of the third Varsity 8. Santa Clara has taken a 3/4 length lead